know if anybody else feels as strongly about this as I do, but there is nothing that makes me more worried than hearing two words: group projects. Seriously, just the thought of having to collaborate and make decisions with people and having to depend on them to do work freaks me out to the point where I feel like every group project I'm a part of is going to end up looking something like this. Although I really disdain group projects, I know that as a comm major, being able to collaborate and make decisions with other people is a skill I really need to hone in on. Although group decision making seems intimidating and challenging, the results of group decision making can result in more satisfying and high quality results than decisions made by individuals if the proper steps are followed. And this is where these two guys come in. This is Dennis Gorin and Randy Hirakawa, and they believed that group interaction has a positive effect on final decision making, assuming that the group members care about the decision, are reasonably intelligent, and face the tasks that calls for clear thinking. This led Gorin and Hirakawa to develop their theory, functional perspective on group decision making. Now, before we actually delve into what this theory is about, let's get some background information out of the way. So as I said before, the two scholars who developed this theory were David Gorin and Randy Hirakawa. They are two communications professors. This theory is more objective than interpretive, and this falls under the socio-psychological and cybernetic traditions. So now that we've discussed the background information, let's get to the actual theory itself. So let's start by talking about the name of the theory. What exactly is a functional perspective and why is it relevant to group communication? So a functional perspective clarifies what communication must accomplish for group decisions to be wise. This perspective describes and predicts task group behavior when the four communications functions are fulfilled. What functions, you ask? Well, let's talk about them. In order to achieve a high quality and appropriate solution, Hirakawa and Gorin believe there are four requirements or requisite functions that need to be met. So the first function is analysis of the problem. This is determining the nature, extent, and causes of the problem. The second function is goal setting, which is establishing criteria by which to judge proposed solutions. The third function is identification of alternatives, which is the generation of options to solve the problem, and the fourth and final function is the evaluation of negatives and positives, which means testing the merits of each option against the criteria selected. So Hirakawa and Gorin initially believed that no one path of events or group agenda does the job better than the other as long as all four functions are followed, and that one function isn't inherently more important than the others. Hirakawa later discovered that the groups that successfully resolved difficult problems usually took a common decision-making path. In a later study conducted by Hirakawa, he admits that he and Gorin were wrong in assuming that all the functions are equal in importance. The study that he did concludes that of the four functions, evaluation of specifically the negative consequences of alternative solutions is the most crucial to ensure a quality decision. The figure I have on this slide represents the path that offers the best problem-solving progression. So groups begin with problem analysis, then branch out to deal with the goal setting and the identification of alternatives, and then finally end with evaluating the positives and the negatives of the alternatives before making a final high-quality decision. So now that we know the steps we have to take in order to make a successful decision in a group, let's talk about the role of communication in fulfilling the functions. Many communication scholars agree that discussion among group members has an effect on the quality of a group decision. Verbal interaction allows members to distribute and pool information, catch and fix errors, and influence each other. But distractions and non-productive conversations may arise within a group setting, resulting in a loss of information. If we go back to the figure a couple slides back, you can see that there are bushes. These bushes represent barriers that happen in decision-making when group members wander off the path. These barriers can be anything from ignorance of the issue at hand to faulty facts or assumptions, sloppy evaluation of options, even dumb side conversations that have nothing to do with the task at hand. Group researcher Ivan Steiner claimed that actual group productivity equals potential productivity minus losses due to process. This equation states that communication is best when it doesn't disrupt the free flow of ideas. Hirakawa and Gorin believe that people can be led astray through communication, but that communication also has the power to pull group members back onto the path. Keeping this in mind, Hirakawa and Gorin identified three types of communication in decision making groups. So the first one is promotive communication. This is interaction that moves the group along the goal path by calling attention to one of the four functions. Next is disruptive communication, which is interaction that diverts or hinders group members' ability to achieve the functions. And the final one is counteractive communication. This is an interaction that members use to get the group back on track. Now that we've discussed the actual meat of this theory, how do we put all this information into practice to ensure that future group projects are successful? We can start by putting a few key attitudes forward. So, the first one we can practice is not holding closed minded opinions and attitudes. We could also be wary of pushing an intuition or gut feeling. And finally, we can take active measures to promote clear thinking. Hirakawa and Gorin also suggest using methods of reflective thinking, which is thinking that favors rational consideration over intuitive hunches or pressure from others. So, although this theory is considered to be highly regarded among many communication scholars who endorse it as a model for group discussion and decision making, during a critique of this theory, communication professor Cynthia Stoll and her research consultant Michael Holmes noted that researchers often get mixed results when testing the theory's prediction. They claim that this is due to the functional perspective treating groups as if they were self-contained zero-history systems. They're referring to the research and development of this theory that was based on forming groups of strangers and asking them to reach an agreement on a hypothetical problem. When you think about it, the functions offered in this theory may not be the most useful to those who are dealing with real-life conflicts. So to improve this theory, Stoll and Holmes offered a few solutions that they believe would improve the theory. They believe that theorists should adopt a bona fide group strategy. A bona fide group is a group with stable yet permeable boundaries that are interdependent with their immediate context. When groups are bona fide, most participants already know and have relationships with each other outside of the group. Stoll and Holmes also believe that this theory should adopt a historical function that requires the group to talk about how past decisions were made, as well as an institutional function that's satisfied when members discuss those who aren't part of the group discussion but will still be impacted by the ultimate decision. While these critiques are valid, I still believe that Hirakawa and Gordon's theory is useful and beneficial for not only group communication, but for communication as a whole. Being able to effectively communicate one-on-one is powerful, but being able to effectively communicate with a group and make the best possible decision for everyone involved is even more powerful and arguably more important.